All right, I'm going to call the October Surrey County Economic Development EW Extension Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, we have roll call.
James Schlender.
Present.
Tom Duffy.
Here.
Jesse Betcher.
Here.
Ryan Bisonet. Stacy Hessel.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Madam Clerk, are we in compliance with open meetings laws?
The meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of Wisconsin statute.
All right, the meeting agenda has been posted. Is there any modifications that the committee would like to make? Hearing none, moving on to public comments. Is anybody present here or online who is not on the agenda who would wish to address the committee at this time?
Good morning, Linda Zilmer, Edgewater property owner, 902 Holly Hill Lane, Birchwood, Wisconsin. And I want to address one of your agenda items for this morning. On previous versions of the agenda, it was called the anti-vaccine resolution. I understand that there are a lot of different opinions about what precautions we need to take during a pandemic. I don't believe that it's the role of county government to be passing resolutions like this. We have different branches of federal, state government that are working its way through how this will all turn out for vaccinations. There are religious and medical exemptions, and what this feels like to me is a political statement that represents not all of Sawyer County, but a certain smaller faction. And so I would encourage this committee or any other committees in the county board to not adopt this resolution. And to me, it just has that feeling just like the Second Amendment resolution did. It's political and it doesn't serve a public health purpose. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to address the committee at this time? Hearing none, moving on to number 6, minutes from the September meeting.
I move to approve.
A motion from Mr. Duffy to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
And a second from Ms. Hessel. Any discussions on the motion? Mr. Betcher, do you have any discussion on the motion?
No, sir.
Call for a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on, number 7, Surrey County Agricultural Fair Association report. Ms. Hessel.
The Fair Board President was not available, but he messaged me. We have our annual meeting next week, working on getting materials set up to build stalls that were in the budget for this summer, working on plans for extending the roof of the pig barn. We'll be working with a 4-H group to see what the improvements they want for the future. We have all of our main contracts set for next summer's fair. Each year, we've been getting further ahead with our planning.
Thank you. Can you forward that on to Ms. Fitch so we can just have that introduced as part of the record? Any questions?
I can try. I'm technology challenged, but I'll try. Okay.
I have faith in your abilities, Ms.
Thank you.
Hessel.
Thank you very much.
Even when you don't believe in you, I believe you. Moving on to number 8, UW Wisconsin Extension Department report.
Good morning.
The floor is yours.
Lynn did include our visioning session flyer that went out. We did have that, and I will report to you that we received 2 people's input, and that's just sad to me, but it is what it is, and we have it. I do have notes from that meeting. If anyone wants them, I'll send them to Lynn so she can put them in the packet too, so you can all have them that way. But Mike was one of those people, and Randy from Winter School District was another person who sent me information afterwards. She wasn't able to join at the times that we had. So just a couple highlights for you from that, in case you don't want to read a couple pages. But there are the things that came to the top of something as we hired this position was just making sure there's consistency and communication as we hire this person, a consistent voice for the face of extension, an individual who's committed to and understands the dynamics of the area would be important. some of the critical needs or issues that bubbled up were potential mentorship programs, restorative justice programs, after school opportunities, and thinking about education and social skills in particular came up for youth. And then there were a few ideas of how do you see extension filling educational needs, such as having local decision makers and parents and families understanding the opportunities that we do have through extension, mentorship program again, homework support, and a couple other ideas that I think I can communicate to the Family Resource Center as some support groups for parents. So that was it. That's the information that we have. And so I'll take that and finish creating the position description and move forward with hiring at this point. I mean, I was really hoping that there might be some other input as we craft the position description to make sure that it fits for Sawyer County. But I've also had the opportunity to work here in this county for 8.5 years or so. And so I do have a little bit of a finger on the pulse of youth needs and families here in the county. So hopefully we'll be able to just move forward with it.
Any questions for Beltruce? Did I say it right?
So no. Close, Jim. I mean, we're going to get there.
6 years into this, and I'm, still stumble over that.
Lori, just Lori.
How do you say it?
Baltrucious.
Baltrucious. I've never gotten close to that. You would
have married into
but we believe in you too. So.
I didn't pick it. I mean, you kind of
did. I'll never make that mistake. All right, moving on to number 9. Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau.
All right, another exciting month of tourism. We have our annual meeting tomorrow night, and we're kind of excited. Senator Bailey's going to come, so that is very exciting. The vacation guide. So they've been flying off the shelves. So we had to do a rerun of 3,000 more of 2021. We're in the process. Today is proofing for the 2022, but there's a paper shortage, so it may be delayed. We were hoping the first week of December, but it may be pushed out now. So we'll see, but it's just crazy. So people are still picking everything up. It's just crazy to me. Anyway, website redesign, we're in the process of getting that up and going. Room tax. Did I talk to you guys about room tax last month? No, I did? No, okay. So the town of Brown Lake passed it. So they passed it at 4% at their July meeting. And then in August, they had another meeting to decide who they were going to give the funds to for the marketing. And they decided to go with Hayward Lakes, and they're going to give us 70%, but they're going to have a small exception in there that 10% of it needs to go towards marketing the town of Brown Lake. So we did meet with an attorney, and he specializes in room tax contracts and stuff, and so he thought that was acceptable, and actually, we could do that. And we're going to put in somewhere in there that the town chairman has to kind of direct us, so we're not like guessing what they want us to spend that 10% on. And 10% is going to only be about $3,000, so it's not like a lot of money that we're going to have to try to spend. So we're very, very excited about that, and that goes into effect January 1st. Social media, we had a lot of fun this summer with the summer selfie contest. We had 243 entries. Our membership spotlight videos are still going every week, and people will keep tuning in every week to see the next business that's highlighted, so that's going really well. So some of our social media following is up. The Department of Tourism, when I wrote this, I love that you're so organized. But when I wrote this, we only had received one grant, and that was a TIC grant, the Travel Information Center grant of $1,900. But since then, I've also received a grant for $11,225, which is a second year for studying in Sawyer County of snowmobile-friendly communities, which we'll start advertising that promotion December 27th through March 27th. And Destinations Wisconsin will have their annual fall tourism conference in November. Again, we're up for an award. So, and that is the first year of that Snap a Selfie Winter Snowmobile Contest. So, and then lots of great PR we got last month. So, any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Beckman? Thank you for the good job that you're doing. I actually enjoy your report. Mr. Betcher, do you have any questions for Ms. Beckman?
No, sir.
All right, thank you for your report. Moving on to number 10, Northwest Regional Planning Commission report. Do you have anything from Mr. Johnson?
All right, can you hear me?
Sheldon, are you here?
I am here, but can you hear me at all?
Yep, we can hear you, Sheldon. Thank you.
All right, sorry, I was having some technical difficulties on the backside here. So Ken Pearson submitted the financials for the last quarter on the different revolving loan funds that we have. So that's in your packet. I just really wanted to jump online today just to give a couple of quick brief updates. Crystal Road in the office still continues to work towards the workforce grant in collaboration with others in the region. So that's still moving forward. We are currently continue to work with Sand Lake in their food pantry project. So that is and has been moving forward over the last several months. They opened September 11th. They currently have hours of operations on Saturday and Tuesdays. So that's moving forward successfully for them. Met with LCO last week regarding a EDA application they're looking to submit for a planning feasibility project. And then lastly, I reported last month on the Bounce Back Main Street program. We had originally submitted or awarded 13 projects in Sawyer County. Our second wave meeting we had last week, we awarded 2 additional projects in Sawyer County. And that is my brief comments.
Sheldon, we're going to need a resubmission of that quarterly report, just so we can have that for the record. I guess it either bounced or the email didn't make it or something.
Hey, I'm on the phone too. I will have the full report completely prepared for the November. Since we just closed the quarter at the end of September, I didn't have all the numbers. So sorry about that, Sheldon.
Okay, well, that works.
We usually lag about a month and a half after quarter close with loan funds.
Okay. Any questions for Northwest Regional Planning Commission? Mr. Betcher, do you have any questions?
No, sir.
All right, thank you for your report, Sheldon.
Hey, thanks everybody.
Moving on to number 11, Economic Development Corporation report. We do have a report. Mr. Gardner, is there any highlights that you wish to share?
Well, we've been pleased to be able to play a supportive role to a number of local and regional ones. Sheldon just mentioned the Workforce Innovation Grant. We've been working with them, and the focus on them is graduate retention and older workers. So there should be quite a bit of Sawyer County utility there. You likely read about the Minong Access Commuter Project in the paper. We were fortunate to play a supportive role in getting that funding for transportation. We just completed the Sawyer County Culinary Academy, it was called. It's a reentry program for JO recipients. 8 participants completed that and got certification in a range of hospitality, kitchen cook related things. And with a it was a great group. We were fortunate we were able to support that with an anonymous donation that we had received. We played a supportive role to probably half of those bounce back grants that Sheldon mentioned were $10,000 grants that came to businesses here in Hayward and Sawyer County. We're working on a number of active funding opportunities, one with the USDA Rural Development for potential business incubation potential. Been meeting with Sherry and Chris and Don regarding prospects in the travel, tourism, and outdoor recreation category. We do have a number of significant events coming up, more than typical this month. I did hand out this small community forum. I would encourage all of you to come. It's an array of state and federal agencies would be here in town on the morning of the 26th. We were able to support that with funding from Enbridge Energy. We have October 28th, we're hosting with Backroads Coffee and Tea, the Business After Hours event. Likely familiar with that format, but we're pleased to be working with both the Chamber and Backroads on that. And our annual meeting is coming up on November 4th out at the Lacuta Ojibwa College. We have fortunate to have this speaker. She is the Executive Director of Grow North, the regional organization to the east of us, but she's the chair of the Governor's Task Force on Broadband. She's on the Commission of Rural Prosperity and a number of other state and federal affiliations. So she represents Northern Wisconsin on a lot of commissions and stuff outside the area. So we'll be making sure you get more details on that as they become available. We're also working with the Sawyer County Housing Authority to try to find some fits in these funding opportunities for them, get them the support they need to move forward with some of their initiatives. I think that's the highlights, certainly.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Betcher, do you have any questions for Mr. Gardner?
No, sir.
Any other questions from the committee? All right, moving on, number B, we have a Resorts of Northwoods presentation from Mr. Kohler.
Not your turn.
Here, I brought everybody breakfast.
That's a good way
It
to
was
start.
early morning, Don.
Oh.
You can stay there. Hey, that's a great
Need the
seat for
mic.
you, man.
You need the mic, so
The guy that builds the trails can sit at the table.
you need to actually kind of sit next to the mic so Mr. Betcher can hear you.
Is this a mic here?
Yep, you're
Okay. Sit down. Good morning. I want to thank you all for having me here this morning and the opportunity to present a project that we've been working on. I know a lot of you, some of you may not know who I am. My name is James Boland. My wife Heather and I have ran the Lake Owen Resort just outside of Cable for the last 24 years. And Lake Owen Resort, just outside of Cable. And I also spent 13 years as the director of the Cable Area Chamber of Commerce. So I'm certainly familiar with tourism, and as I was looking through how the pandemic was affecting tourism and what was going on and talking to a lot of my colleagues, an interesting thing popped out, and that is that destination resorts actually fared very well throughout the pandemic. So to give you an example, the concourse in Madison saw about 20% occupancy last year due to the pandemic and obviously cancellation of events in big metropolitan areas, and people weren't exactly looking to go where the crowds were. They wanted to get away. They wanted to get up here in northern Wisconsin, and obviously we've seen that. And so destination resorts actually saw about 85% occupancy through the pandemic, and in many cases were able to raise their average daily rates because of the demand. And so as I was thinking about this area, and certainly this area is a tourism destination. Tourism is one of our biggest economic drivers, but there isn't really a what you would consider to be a destination resort. Miami Beach is a destination. There are resorts and hotels and stuff there, but you don't go there for the hotel. You go there because Miami Beach is the draw. Destination resort becomes the draw in and of itself. It has to be at a caliber that people are coming wherever that resort is because the resort is there, and obviously the area benefits. So I began working with a team of individuals looking at this area because obviously running a resort here, I know that a lot of people come for all the activities that there are to do. And through my role at the chamber, working with Sherry on marketing and stuff, I know that they come for our trails. They come for the lakes and and the fishing and all of the activities that this area is known for is a huge draw. And as I looked at the other destination resorts around the country, they did not have nearly as much to offer as this part of northwestern Wisconsin does. But we've never really put the whole package together to be able to market a destination to bring the people in like I think the potential is here to have happen. So my partners and I began looking at it and putting together a plan and a vision and assembling a team that we believe has the ability to do this. We have now identified a couple parcels of property that we're interested in putting that vision together. And so I'm here today to just kind of give you a brief introduction of the project and where we're at, let you know who the team members are, and then discuss how we can move forward. So the two pieces of property we've identified are the Telemark Golf Course up in Cable and the Spider Lake Golf Course here in Sawyer County. Both are owned by the Titus family. It is not for public knowledge at this point, but the Tituses do not intend to reopen the golf course or the condominiums next year. They are done. And so if we are successful in getting this project put together, we will be able to retain those businesses and have them operational next year. That is our hope, that is our intent. But the concept for Resorts of the Northwoods is fairly simple. Two very distinct resort properties up in Cable. The Telemark Golf Course clearly sits right next to the old Telemark Resort, and everything that the Berkey is in the process of doing there as far as trail development and events. Canva has their whole mountain bike system, which exists there as well. And then, of course, there's all the lakes and activities. The snowmobile trail runs right adjacent to the property. The Namakagon River runs adjacent to this property. And so up in Bayfield County, we're looking at building a family-style, soft-branded chain hotel that will also have convention conference space, rooms in it as well, and a standalone restaurant. It's essentially going to be a base camp for outdoor recreation. There will be other events that we intend to hold on the grounds, festivals, and things of that nature. Down here in Sawyer County at Spider Lake, you're going to hear me reference Clear Lake. The reason for that is the Spider Lake Golf Course actually sits on Clear Lake. It's part of the Spider Lake chain. But we think from a marketing standpoint, people are going to be much more interested in staying at some place called Clear Lake versus Spider Lake. And so we are intending to build what's called the Inn at Clear Lake at the Spider Lake Golf Course, keep the golf course open and operational. We actually looked at the condominiums that are there. There are 8 absolutely beautiful 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condos that are already existing that in their best year, they saw 8% occupancy at. And so we intend to market that, to join the chamber, to get those on the website, let people know that they're there, and use the assets that already exist. But our intent at Spider Lake, Clear Lake, is to build a luxury resort, which is not a description, it's actually a classification. And so there's a Relais and Chateau level type property that we'll build there. It'll be high end for the discerning traveler, small footprint because these people are looking for more luxury and privacy and stuff. And then the other interesting part is we're going to build a corporate training center. A lot of people don't understand the difference between a corporate retreat and a corporate training center. A corporate training center is actually for Fortune 500 companies. Usually they're in banking and insurance and finance, and they bring their mid-level and upper-level management teams in for a week's worth of training at a time. So it's a very high-end, technologically advanced facility designed specifically for training. And so the companies are paying. Typically, the companies will book between 8 or 12 weeks of conference time at a facility each year. And so they're paying for all of their meals, their activities, their lodging. And so the corporate training center gives us the ability to help fill rooms and sell meals and stuff as well. And so it's this big vision where we're actually reaching out to multiple market segments. We've got families, we've got people who are interested in outdoor recreation, we've got the business traveler, we've got the more luxurious high-end travelers, but they're all under one umbrella, the Resorts of the Northwoods. And so folks who are staying at the property here in Sawyer County. If they want to go up and participate in some of the recreational activities that are offered at the other facility, they can. We're going to have a huge culinary part of this as well, I'm going to get into in a second. So if there's folks who are up in Bayfield County who want to come down to Sawyer County to have a really fancy restaurant dinner, they'll have that ability as well. And so we put this entire process together. We've vetted it. We've had feasibility studies done. We put a team together. One of the things that I learned early on is you have to assemble the right team to be able to get the project done. And so we'll be able, I've been talking to Tom for quite some time on this and Mike as well, but we'll be able to get you documentation and stuff so that you can actually do some research on the team. But just to give you an idea, we're working with BuildCorp. They're going to do our engineering and our general contracting. They work with the Mayo Clinic out of the Minneapolis area and build a lot of their facilities. We have all our financial stuff being done by White Star Advisors. They built the Radisson Blue that attaches to the Mall of America. They built the hotel that was just built that attaches to the Minneapolis airport. They're currently building the largest office space in the Milwaukee metro area right now. So they have done projects in this area. Jim Bishop, who is their CEO and owner, was the Undersecretary of Commerce for President Ronald Reagan. And so certainly very, very well-versed individual. We're working with Hotel R&D. They happen to be out of Oshkosh. They specialize in research and development feasibility studies, especially in the hospitality industry. So they actually did an initial assessment for us. And then I had them redo that assessment this last June because the initial one was done kind of in the beginning of the pandemic. And as you heard mentioned earlier by Ken, sometimes there's a lag in data and stuff. So I wanted an updated study done this last June. I actually thought it was going to be worse. It actually turned out to be better because Destination Resorts has actually done better than anyone expected. We're working with a company by the name of DS Cooper. They work with the cruise lines on online marketing and website development. We're working with Alice Marshall, who's one of the top PR folks in the tourism industry. And the one that I'm most excited about that we added most recently, we actually have a partnership with Food and Wine Magazine, and they're going to be doing a series of events with us and activities. They actually every year announce the 10 new best chefs in America. Their intent is to make that announcement here in Sawyer County at our property once we get our doors open. And then actually we'll have each of those 10 chefs serve a 1-month internship at the restaurant here in Sawyer County. And so you'll have the ability to come and actually sample that chef's culinary food here. There's a huge culinary piece to this. Obviously, the two properties give us a lot of land. So we have the ability not only to build our own gardens and greenhouses and stuff for the culinary stuff, but we're looking at a huge problem that exists in both Bayfield and Sawyer County, the region in general, is housing. There's a significant housing shortage, both market rate housing, workforce housing, and of course, there's a lot of luxury homes. But you know, given the property that we're building, we're currently right now working on securing the development partner that's going to build our housing project, and we're probably going to start with that. To be honest with you, there's about 665 acres that we're acquiring. And so there's more than enough space, but we understand that workforce housing is going to be critical not only for our project, but also for the region. And it's a really good investment. Obviously, if you invest in housing, those houses never leave. If you invest in a company, you know, provide them with a warehouse or something, they might be here for a few years and then leave. But those houses are always going to be here, always paying property taxes, and hopefully providing homes for workers and families who are in our schools and providing revenue for the community and the county. When you look at the opportunity here, we would be bringing about 65 new full-time jobs into Sawyer County, which would be a huge benefit, obviously, to our workforce. Also, the construction phase of this project. So before we even open our doors, we're gonna have about 200 construction workers working for between 18 and 24 months. And so they're going to be staying in the area. So you've got lodging and meals and their recreational activities for 2 years before we even open our doors. What a huge shot in the arm that we could give to this region coming out of this pandemic. When you look at the benefits to Sawyer County specifically, you know, we're looking at north of $500,000 in property taxes that we would be paying to Spider Lake and Sawyer County. And that number does not include the luxury home taxes that would be created as well. So you're talking about a significant shot in the, I know you're going to get into budget discussions here shortly. So just a little nugget to dangle there. You know, that would be a huge shot in the arm as you're looking at your budget issues as well. And then sales tax, once we get our businesses up and running, you're going to have the golf course, corporate training center, a lodging facility, and a restaurant. You're looking at, you know, about $700,000 in sales tax paid annually as well. So some huge impacts for Sawyer County. The reason I'm here today is because we're now at the place where we're solidifying kind of the usual community engagement in this process, looking at government funding and ways that the county can come alongside, partner with us. Certainly banks and financial institutions expect to see that in projects like that. Our investors want to see that the county is excited about this and wants to see this happen. And so, although I've been working on this for nearly 2 years, this is the first time we've really come publicly to talk about it. I've been working very closely with Mike. He's been a huge help. Ken Pearson is on the phone, or is on the phone from Northwest Regional Planning. They've been helping us, you know, to vet our numbers and get things put together. But we're at the point where we're looking at some government funding that is going to be made available. There's some funds that we believe are currently available, but those are going to require a partnership. A lot of them are flow-through funds that'll come to the county and then can go to our project. So in order to get to that point, we felt that it was important to come and have kind of a high-level discussion with you now, and hopefully be able to set up the opportunity to have continuing dialogue as to the funds that are available and what we can do if it's a situation where it flows through the county. We have secured about $16 million in equity for this project, and we've identified the long-term funding source for this project as well. And so, you know, we're sitting close to $70 million in funding that we've secured, but those investors and stuff are typically going to look for local government, not just support, but involvement and engagement. So wanted to come and just kind of give you a very high level view of the project. Like I said, I'll send Tom or to the committee, to Lynn, some information so that you can see the project and some of the stuff that's been done. Our numbers have not been put together by us. They were put together by Hotel R&D and White Star Advisors. And so it's really their numbers, but this is what they're saying the opportunity is. And it's an incredible opportunity for Sawyer County.
All right. It's a pretty elaborate introduction. A couple things before we open up the questions. One is, you indicated that some things were made to the public. This is a public meeting, so
Yep.
You've just made them available to
Yep.
the public. Second is, yeah, we're going to need something in terms of what your proposal is made available to the committee. So if you can be in contact with the clerk, that would be really good.
Sure.
Mr. Betcher, do you have any questions for Mr. Bolin at this time?
Yeah, you mentioned the public, not for public knowledge already. As far as the Spider Lake name, I mean, there might be a little bit of pushback on that. I mean, I think there's about 3 lakes in the county named Clear Lake, but Spider Lake is very well known, and I don't think that's would be a bad thing to name something Spider Lake. We have a township named after that and several businesses with the name Spider Lake in it. So it's well known as one of the larger lakes in the county. But otherwise, I think it sounds like a pretty good plan.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Cecily, any questions?
I do not.
Mr. Duffy?
I do. Jim, what do you have secured financially for private sources besides federal money? Do you have any private sources secured
Yes.
now?
Yeah.
Who do you have?
None that I can make public at this time, but that's part of the 16 million that I brought up.
And these funds are available for purchase of land, like the
Yeah.
golf course? And,
Yeah.
So those are secured now, but not public disclosure.
Right.
Right, so my questions for you are, what's the source of funds that you think that the county government is going to be able to access or serve as a pass-through?
Well, there's some CDI grants that are out there that have been made available. Recently, there was one given in Bayfield County, the Wild Rice Retreat. And
So are
so
these state or federal?
that would be a state
Grant.
grant, but there are also federal grants. There's also the Board of the Commission of Public Land. They make funds available. It's a hardly ever heard of opportunity. I shared some of the information with Mike earlier. Basically, anytime the state sells its own land, that money goes into a trust and then they invest in projects. And they typically fund the large majority of the projects that requested. I think last year there were 113 applications and 111 were funded. But there again, that's a flow through, so it would go through the county. It looks like SBA, you know, there's been a lot of ARPA funds and stuff that have come out for municipalities and not-for-profits, but you haven't seen a lot of investment in for-profit opportunities yet. But our understanding is that some of those are about to come down the pipe. And so we think there's also some opportunities there. But a lot of those are flow through. So the money would go to the county for the project. And so that's why the partnership is really important between us and Sawyer County.
So how do you envision, or what is it that you are anticipating in terms of a partnership? Are we looking at like co-owners of the project, or?
No, what we're looking at is just support for the concept of the project and a willingness to be the conduit for some of these funds that we identify. Certainly we'll be doing.
But how to articulate that for me? Because I mean, are we going to be an investor? Are we a liaison? I mean, are you looking for like a resolution in support of what your actions are? Are you looking for county liaison involvement or what?
Well, the part of it is a question as far as how that would work, and maybe Tom can answer that better than anybody. But you know, if we identify funds that are available for this project and we apply for them, but they're flow through to the county, then certainly the county is going to have to be the applicant, and so there will be some extra steps there. And so part of it is a discussion on how that works internally here in Sawyer County, but certainly, you know, a willingness to engage at that level is kind of what we're looking for today.
And my last question for you is, have you made any efforts to coordinate with the local tribes? There's at least 2, if not 3 tribes that are in that vicinity that would be potentially impacted or at least open to a discussion.
It is fully our intent to. This is actually the first where we've come publicly to have any discussions. We kind of thought it was important to have the county knowledge about what was going on first before we did that, but it is fully our intent, especially with the LCO tribe. There's a lot of stuff that they're doing, and it gets into more discussion than you want at this time, but we're actually looking at some pretty cool major festivals that we would be having on the grounds, including part of the partnership with Food and Wine Magazine would be there, being a partner with us on a major food festival that we would have. And knowing some of the stuff that the LCO College is looking at doing and adding, a really close relationship with them is something that we're going to be looking for, because I know they're looking at some culinary opportunities and some business and tourism degrees and stuff now. And so we think that there's a great opportunity there to partner with them. We're also going to be working with the UW Stout, which obviously has a very well-known hospitality school as well. But it is fully our intent to work very closely with the tribes.
Any other questions for Mr. Boland? Mr. Boland, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 12, motorized trail and non-motorized trail report. I want the record to reflect that Mr. Duffy brought in an email, Mr. Pop, for some of the, what we call it, silent sports. So Ms. Fitch, if you could incorporate that into the record. Tom, if you want to speak to that, otherwise it turns over to Mr. Morelchik.
Oh, that's fine.
All right, Mr. Morelchik, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, well, I thought I had a great report, but I don't know, Jim kind of took the floor on some of this, I think, with what he's got going on up there But otherwise, for motorized recreation, the ATV trails, the traffic in the area has been fantastic. The weather's been fantastic. Everything's been going great. So that's a simple thing on what's going on there. I put together some stats here and some trends this last week. Snowmobile has not changed much in the last 50 years, you know, other than the improvements to the snowmobiles themselves. Riders want good snow conditions, smooth trails, and places to stop for food, gas, and lodging. So it's been basically the same thing for the last 50 years. On the other hand, ATV demographics have changed greatly over the past years. It started off with the 3-wheelers, then went to the 4-wheelers, and now we have the UTVs out there. There's a need for more miles of summer and winter UTV trails, and the demand to connect to more businesses for the food, gas, and lodging. Recently, there's been a demand for more ATV road routes. Trend shows that some of the riders are not even interested in trail riding, especially down in the southern part of the state where they don't have any trails. They're just looking at for more road routes that they can connect up. Some of them are just going for a Sunday stroll, just going out to eat on Sundays or just going down to the neighbor's place.
Doug, I want to interrupt. What do you mean by if they don't want a road route? What does that mean? Are they riding on the roads?
Yes.
Okay. So they're not like just out running around in the woods with no trail?
Right, there's no trails down. They don't have any county forests or much for state forests even down south. So they're just opening up all the roads all over.
Okay, all right.
As an example, Wisconsin Dells in April opened up all their city streets for ATVs, including Main Street and street going in front of the water park are now open for ATV use. So there's a demand to open up more roads for those types of riding, and also the people up in north here that people want to get to the trail systems, but there are roads, there's not a trail nearby their houses, so they want to open up roads to get there. So there's more of a demand for that. Some of the numbers to consider in Wisconsin, there's 250,000 registered snowmobiles in Wisconsin, 450,000 registered ATVs and UTVs. So we're not quite double the number, but just about double the number on ATVs and UTVs in Wisconsin. For trails, over 2,000 miles of summer ATV trails, over 4,000 miles of winter ATV trails. And half of that is in the northwest part of the state here. Sawyer County has over 200 miles of ATV trails in our county alone, compared to the 2,000 miles in the state. And where are we at? We're about 500 miles of snowmobile trail here. Okay. For snowmobile trails in the state, there's 25,000 miles of snowmobile trails in the state. And right now there's over 42,000 miles that are roads listed as legally open for ATV use. So you can see the trends are opening up more and more roads throughout the state, both riding and just for residential access. So it's interesting here. And of course, I'm very proud of Sawyer County that we've got some of the finest trails in the state up here, and it's drawing a lot of people up to our area.
Doug, who makes the determination on opening the roads to ATVs? Is that DOT or is that locals or what?
Well, you got your town roads, you got your county roads, and you got state roads. So you've got a town roads, you go to the township, get their permission. They got different processes, different townships do. Some of the townships have opened up all the roads. Town of Leonard, all their roads are open up there. Some of the other ones are a little bit more complicated. County roads right now, the process for opening up a county highway is you have to go to the township first, get approval from the township for that section of the county highway that's in their jurisdiction, and then go back to the county and get both county and town approval.
So
State highways can be very complicated. There's a couple of laws that allow you, if the speed limit's under 35 or less, then the township has jurisdiction, they can open it up.
So my question would then be is, what about the liability if we open up those roads? Who's responsible for the conduct or the activity that happens on a road that's open up to ATVs?
It would be no different than a vehicle traveling on it, a bicycle, horseback rider, same type of liability.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Morocco? Jesse, you got any questions for Doug?
Don,
Don?
I mean, yeah, just, so where's this, is this like a request, Don, or where is this coming
No,
from?
no,
The-
just information I'm just giving out there, just showing some of the trends. I was questioning on it last week. Somebody asked me where we're going on some of the road information.
Right, I just see I mean, you mentioned how many hundreds of miles of trails we have and how good the trails are. So then I just see that there could be some potential pushback with, you know, advertising these fabulous trails and then saying, well, we also need to drive our, you know, vehicles on the roads that don't have, you know, the safety features of, you know, whatever, lights and blinkers and all the normal stuff that a licensed automobile has to have to drive on those roads. So I know there's been some problems with some other townships, notably Spider Lake, with their opening up of the ATVs. In fact, I think they're not allowed again. Is that correct, Don? They were, but they're not anymore. Is that the deal with Spider Lake?
Spider Lake had opened up all their town roads for ATV use. Now they've reverted back to just the certain ones that were designated to connect the trail system. So.
Right, and I think that's partly because there was a lot of pushback from the residents that didn't want the ATVs zipping up and down the roads with, you know, the inevitable safety considerations and the accidents that are going to happen. So yeah, it's there's probably going to be some debate over this one. Thanks though.
Duffy?
Oh, thank you.
All right, thank you for your report. Mr. Don Morotek, for the record.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 13, affirmation of legal protections for healthcare choice discrimination resolution for discussion only. So we have a resolution that has been drafted for the committee's review, and it deals with the impending potential federal mandate for requirements for vaccinations for continued employment. And I have some pretty strong opinions about this, but I'll open the floor up for discussion. Mr. Betcher, I'm going to turn this over to you. You can lead the way.
Yeah, so first of all, I mean, I'd like to say that, you know, this is not at all political, and I don't think it's personal either. I mean, it doesn't really affect a whole lot of people in Sawyer County, but some of the people that it does affect are the, you know, some of the healthcare and first responders and stuff like that. So the problem is, you know, it's been noted over and over the past several months of our workforce shortage here in the county, and now on the cusp of potentially terminating some valuable employees because of, you know, I just feel there, you know, we need to have some exemptions in place. And if there are some limited religious exemptions, then, you know, I believe that we could also include some just moral or personal objections to or exemptions for this a mandatory vaccine. So not at all political, and like I said, not personal. I mean, it doesn't affect me at all. I'm a you know, I have an employee of one, which is myself, so it doesn't affect me. And you know, on another personal note, I'm not at all an anti-vaxxer. I mean, my shot records are 3 pages long. And including experimental vaccines like anthrax and botulism and stuff like that. So it's not about that. It's just about personal choice and freedoms. And again, our workforce shortage. So here, you know, we're in an economic development committee, and we're talking about the problems of not having enough workers. And now, like I said, we're on the brink of potentially terminating, you know, otherwise fully qualified workers. So, and as far as public health, how it affects public health, well, it definitely does. If you're talking about, you know, terminating 5, 10, or 15% of our public health employees. And I just would like to take some, you know, bring this to the attention of the board, the full board, before we go down a path that we might have trouble getting back from. So that's kind of my opening comments on that, Mr. Chairman.
Was there any questions or comments regarding the resolution, Ms. Hessel?
I'm just happy when we're proactive and not reactive about something. So I think this puts us in a proactive measure.
Mr. Duffy?
I don't think people like mandates. I think it's nice to have it just optional. Don't take sides on it, but I think a mandate is a mistake.
So I spoke a little bit to this at public safety because the concerns that Mr. Betcher has raised are materializing in public safety because there's a potential for a federal requirement for healthcare workers to have a vaccination in order to remain employed. And my position is that a county agency is run by the county. It's not run by the federal government. It's not run by the state government. And that the hook that's being used is that there's a potential threat of withholding federal reimbursement dollars to the agencies that fail to abide by a federal directive. And while I believe in the Constitution and I believe in, you know, the supremacy clause of Article 6 of the United States Constitution, I also believe that there's a fundamental protection against government oversight and government stepping into, not just into local government management affairs, but into individual decisions. And so if we're going to take money that's already been expended and threaten to withhold that, which would then cripple these agencies from being able to go forward on an unrelated matter in terms of a vaccination for their credentials to go forward, when is that going to stop? Do we have to require pregnancy tests for women if they come back from a long weekend? Are we going to have other types of tests that's going to be for, you know, for things that the common people believe that is for the common good? I am deeply opposed to having a government agency tell an employee who has been hired with a certain set of expectations that if they're going to be law enforcement, if they're going to be an ambulance driver, if they're going to be a janitor, that they're hired to perform those duties and they do those duties and they conduct themselves appropriately. And that given the other challenges that exist in this world, Ebola virus, there's other pandemics that have happened. And I don't mean to diminish the COVID or the coronavirus because, you know, I've lost family members to that. And I am not against vaccines. Just as Mr. Betcher has a long list, you know, if you're in the military, you don't get an option. And so I've been vaccinated against stuff that I don't even know what, you know, what's going to come forward. So I'm not against the vaccine. What I believe in and what is fundamental to this idea of what we're going to be as citizens is the idea of to do what you want and the freedom to make that choice. And if there's an opportunity to be vaccinated, I would encourage people to be vaccinated. But if they cannot or do not want to for their own personal reasons, we should respect that. And if our government and if our employers are going to mandate that, I have a problem with that because that's not why they were hired in the first place. So that's what I said on Thursday. So I'm not saying anything different, just probably with a different audience. Procedurally, Mr. Betcher, what we need to do with this resolution is, I read the first version. I haven't had a chance to look at the second version. We got to make sure that resolutions are not legal documents like a legal brief. We don't need to prove every single step going forward, but we do need to highlight the premise for where we're coming from. And so I need legal to look at this, corporate counsel to look at this, to kind of vet it and shape it down a little bit so that we're clear as to what the intent of what the resolution is. And a resolution is an expression of the government of those in favor, and it articulates those who may be against, because I know that there's going to be people who believe in this endeavor, and I respect their positions. I understand what's going on with what their arguments are. I just don't believe that an employer should have a requirement for someone that's going to affect them when they're not in employment status, because a vaccine doesn't exit your body when you punch out. It stays in your body the entire time. And if someone has an opposition to that, they should be respected for that ability to object. So, Mr. Betcher, given that tirade and that procedural analysis, what do you recommend?
I mean, I don't know if at this point we're ready to make a motion to forward this to the full county board, or like you said, it needs more legal review. I'm not sure on what the next step is. I believe it. I would like to see it go forward.
All right, well, I'm gonna do probably the wisest and foolish thing I'm gonna do. I'm gonna open this up for discussion. Anybody have any discussions on the resolutions that's on the floor?
I would like to see it brought forward sooner than later.
What's that?
I would like to see it brought forward sooner than later.
What do you mean by brought forward?
Continued to, we can make a motion on it instead of just discussing forever.
Right.
So
I mean, I'm not trying to stall it. What I do need is I need some legal analysis, not just my legal analysis. I want some corporate counsels hired to help us make sure that the language is, that we're statutorily with our confines under Article, what is it, 56? Is that what 59 is for county governments? That we're operating under Chapter 59 because we're an extension of the state government. And so we still have the same obligations under the state constitution as the state government does, but we have delegated responsibilities and limitations. So I want to make sure that analysis happens before we put this forward. Is there anybody here who wants to speak to it? As you know, do I have any hands up? All right. Well, Mr. Hoff, I'm not going to put you in a political discussion, but what's the procedural recommendation for this?
Well, your agenda item says discussion only, so I don't know that you can do an action today, but depending on, if you want to bring this back to this committee or another committee, or you could bring it to the full board with 2 sponsors from county board members.
So I agree with Ms. Hessel that this doesn't need to stay here, but I do strongly believe, just because I'm a lawyer, that I want corporate counsel to look at this. So Mr. Betcher, is there any objections if we have corporate counsel review it and then we put it back on the agenda for discussion and action for the next month?
I mean, at this point, I think it might be a little bit faster if it was just like Mr. Hoff said, if it was brought to the full board with, introduced with 1 or 2 co-sponsors. But, I mean, that whoever does that could also get legal review from our council.
So,
I'm not objecting to it. I just think that then if we bring it to our committee in November and then we vote and then it won't be until December. Whereas at this point, we could bring it to the full board in November if it's introduced with a co-sponsor.
how about we do this, Mr. Betcher? Because admin meets next Thursday. Admin controls the agenda for the full board. How about we advance this to admin with instructions that corporate counsel have it ready for admin's review?
Yeah, and I think council is aware of this, resolution. I just don't know if she's given the full, review of it, but she's aware of it.
Well, I'm going to direct Mr. Hoff to communicate with corporate counsel to review this, and that I guess we would entertain a motion to direct this resolution to admin for the next admin meeting.
Can I make that motion?
I have a motion for Mr. Betcher to direct this resolution to admin in consultation with corporate counsel.
I'll second that.
I have a second from Ms. Hessel. Do we have any discussions on the motion? Hearing none. Call for a vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
I have one. So I vote in favor. So we have 3 votes in favor, 1 vote against for the motion. The motion carries. No vote for Mr. Bissonnette, who's not present for the discussion and vote. I need that to have that reflected. So Mr. Bissonnette was not present for discussion and the vote. There was 3 votes in favor, 1 vote against. So this resolution will be advanced to administration for consideration with instructions that corporate counsel review it prior to it being submitted to admin. Mr. Hoff?
Yes.
Got it. All right. Anything else on this topic? All right, moving on, number 14, budget status. We have 2022 UW Wisconsin extension budget. Ms. Baltruis?
Yes.
I think just keep messing with them, say different.
I will. So really no big changes for our budget. I think what's up there. We've met with Mike about, I've looked at the contract coming up for 2022. There was a little bit of an increase there, but it's reflected in the budget thing. So.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the title of the spreadsheet, I think, or the report was extension, but there are a couple other things I'll bring to your attention here too that this committee has jurisdiction over. So as we look at page 1 of that report, you'll see at the top there, there's some minor revenues that come in. There's one LCO reimbursement that's actually contribution from the tribe for a portion of one of the positions in extension. And then some other minor revenues. So those are the only revenue sources we have coming in to offset these other expenses. The big one for this department is the extension office, and that is, that contractual amount that we contract with the state for extension to provide those services. So as Lori mentioned, there was a slight increase in that. So the total for the extension budget is up slightly, a couple $1,000s. For 2022. Also, the county fair has a request for county funding. Last year they had a request of $45,000. They did request the same amount this year, but the $10,000 in capital, the submission for their budget was the same capital items as last year, so we didn't increase any more for capital. We just carried forward that amount from last year since they had not spent any. So even though the request or the budget amount is $45,000, that's 35 of operations plus that 10,000. If they don't spend it all this year, it would get carried over to next year. Regional planning, that $35,044, that's the county's portion of the Regional Planning Commission, and that's set by statute as far as an allocation between the counties that are involved within our Northwest Regional Planning Commission. There's a small portion there for ITBEC, and that's an economic development item. The Economic Development Corporation, which the county has funded the last few years at $25,000, they have a request in again for $25,000, and that is included in the budget. The Hayward Lakes Visitors Bureau, this one we've had plenty of discussions on in the past, and they've had contributions from the county in the amount of $50,000. The county has always had some discussion about how room tax could help offset the county's contribution, and they've seen over the few years here some other towns passing that room tax and contributing those dollars to the Visitors Bureau, which is helpful for their funding. In the budget, I've included $10,000 of funding instead of the $50,000. The $10,000 contribution does show that the county is interested in tourism and helping to fund that. But with those other funds coming in from room tax, does the county need to fund at that full $50,000?
Mr. Hoff, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Have you submitted a request? What is that request?
50.
Okay.
Yeah, so they submitted the same $50,000 request. So as the funding of that for the Visitors Bureau, they've received a lot more revenue than they have in the past. This is county levy. It's under the levy limits. As we talk about the total budget for the county and our increase in new construction is the only thing we can raise the levy limit by, and that's about $70,000 to $80,000 a year. So we need to fit all of our operational costs within those confines. And so as we look at areas that we can reduce funding so that we can pay for the other things that are priorities in the county, this is one area that I felt could be reduced without hurting their efforts in that regard. Again, the county board, so these are the numbers that are going forward to the county board and to the public hearing in a couple of weeks. And then the county board has the option of course, changing anything that they want within that budget. So this is my recommendation to you based on what I see happening. But but the county always has the option of changing that number or any number within the budget. There's also some ARPA funding, that could be applied to help the tourism efforts. So that's not included in this budget. So there are other opportunities, perhaps, if the county felt that they should contribute more. We can discuss that, but that is not in the operating budget currently. Clean Sweep, that's a program there that's funded about the same as last year. So as we get down to the bottom for these items, that net grand total and negative 218,000, that represents the amount of county levy that it takes to provide the services that we just talked about here. So out of the total levy, 218,000, 219,000 tax levy is used to support those items. Questions, comments?
Mr. Betcher, do you have any questions for Mr. Hoff on the budget discussion?
No, sir.
Ms. Hessel?
No.
Mr. Duffy?
No.
So I do. Tom, when does the county board actually engage in that? Is there? I know that there's a public hearing for the presentation of the budget, but when does the board have a chance to start discussing these numbers on the global scale?
Yeah, so we'll have these kinds of discussions in each of the committees for the jurisdiction of the departments under each of those committees. At the county board meeting next Thursday, that's when I will do the full presentation of the entire budget, and that essentially turns the budget over to the county board. And at that point, then it's the county board's prerogative to make any changes. So they would have opportunities for discussion next Thursday at the full county board meeting. There'll be probably that same discussion at the public hearing. We can hear things from the public, have further discussion there. And then, we've got another round of committees in November, and then the budget adoption in early November at the county board meeting. So we've got 2 county board meetings and a public hearing and another round of committees to have those discussions.
So I say that because we had turnover on this board. I think we have, from the previous election to this point now, I think half the board has been turned over with people who have either brand new elected or were appointed midstream, and now we're in our first real budget discussions. And so it's incumbent upon the committees of jurisdiction to understand the requests that are going forward, because we're going to be the champions when it comes to the larger discussions. So we all have different hats that we wear. I serve on public safety, so I have certain protections that need to go forward, in terms of law enforcement. We have responsibilities of economic development. So those items that are jurisdiction, those are our responsibility to understand what we're going to be voting for and trying to either defend, increase, or not support when we get in front of the rest of our colleagues. And so just to give you, a taste, Ms. Beckman has gone to the ringer for the last probably 6 different years. So when she says room tax, there's a couple of us that just kind of twitch and just start blinking out. It's our responsibility to understand these when we go forward, because we're going to speak to them, and then their viability rests on us, because then that's the final issue. And some of us have our, pet projects or pet areas. I mean, there's other budget concerns that we don't have. Our only chance to discuss that is going to be at that full board meeting. So that's just for an old salt talking to the rookies in terms of what we're going to do for the budget. Any other discussions or questions for Mr. Hoff on the budget? Ms. Hessel, do you have anything?
I do not.
Hold on. Mr. Duffy?
No.
Mr. Betcher?
Nothing.
Mr. Rotek, you have a question?
Yeah, you're talking about going to the full county board on that, but if this committee does not agree with that, if they think it should be more or something, should that not be done at this committee level right now if they wanted to change that, or does it need to wait to go to the full county board?
So it would be discussed, and there would be kind of a consensus, but there's other people who have connections to some of these entities that may not be on this committee. And so Mr. Hoff has the responsibility of bringing it forward, and we'll have an idea, but usually that's, so they say that, what is it, law and sausages? You don't want to see how either one are made. This is how This is that process. Any other questions? Thank you for that, Mr. Hoff. Moving on to number 15, future agenda items. Are there any committee members who wish to have something added to the November meeting agenda? Mr. Batcher, do you have anything?
I do not. Thank you.
Ms. Hessel?
No.
Moving on to number 16, correspondence reports from conferences and meetings for matters for discussion only and other matters for discussion only. Mr. Batcher, do you have anything else you wish to discuss with the committee?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Ms. Hessel?
No.
Mr. Duffy?
No.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.